Seven beggars, I will tell you how people once rejoiced. There was once a king who had an only son, nachman. The king wanted to transfer the kingdom to his son during his lifetime. So he made a banquet, and of course whenever a king makes a banquet, it is a very joyous affair, especially on this occasion, when he is transferring the kingdom to his son during his lifetime. It was certainly an extremely joyous affair. All the royal ministers were there, and all the dukes and nobles, and they were having a grand time at the banquet. There was great celebration in the entire country, for the king was transferring the kingdom to his son in his lifetime, which is a great honor for the king. The rejoicing was very great. There were all types of entertainment, musical performances, comedy shows, and the likes. All types of entertainment were there at the banquet. At one point, when the rejoicing was very intense, the king stood up and said to his son, "Since I am an astrologer, I see that you will eventually lose the kingship. So take care that you do not become sad when this happens, but remain happy. Only when you will be happy, I will also be happy. But even when you are sad, I will still be happy that you are not king. For you are then not fitting to be king, since you are unable to maintain yourself in a state of joy when you lose the kingship. But when you will be happy, then I will be extremely happy." Nanach, nachman, meuman. The son took over the kingdom with a firm hand. He appointed his own ministers, dukes, nobles, and an army. The king's son was wise, and he greatly loved wisdom. So he kept great sages in his company. Whoever came to him with some nugget of wisdom received very great esteem. He gave honor and wealth for that wisdom, as each person wished. Whoever wanted money, he gave money, and to whoever wanted honor, he gave honor, all for the sake of wisdom. And since wisdom was so important to him, everyone began to study it. The entire country devoted itself to wisdom. Those who wanted money did so in order to receive money for it, while others did so in order to get esteem and honor. But since the entire country devoted itself only to wisdom, they forgot the strategies of war. But since the entire country devoted itself only to wisdom, they forgot the strategies of war. They were all busy with wisdom, and all became very wise. Least of them would be considered the greatest in another country. And their wise were thus very extraordinarily wise. But on account of their wisdom, they lost their faith, and they convinced the king's son of their ideas, and he too lost his faith. The rest of the countrymen did not lose their faith, since the depth and subtlety of the wisdom prevented them from penetrating it. So it did not harm them, but the wise men and the king's son lost their faith. Now the king's son, since essentially he was good, since he was born from good stock, and possessed good and upright character traits, would occasionally ask himself, "Where in the world am I? What am I doing?" He would then groan and sigh. "Where in the world am I? Where in the world am I? What am I doing? Where in the world am I? What am I doing?" He would then groan and sigh over having fallen into such perplexities and gotten so confused. He would sigh deeply. But as soon as he began again to use his rational mind, those heretical wisdoms returned to assert themselves. This happened several times. Whenever such thoughts arose in his mind, he would groan and sigh. But as soon as he began to use his rational mind again, those heresies rebounded. Uy. Those heresies rebounded. But as soon as he began to use his rational mind again, those heresies rebounded. Now it came to pass that all the people of a certain country fled. In their flight they passed through a certain forest, where a boy and girl were lost, went lost. One person lost a boy and another lost a girl. They were young children, about 4 or 5 years old. They had nothing to eat, so they shouted and cried, but they had nothing to eat. Meanwhile, a beggar passed by, carrying his bags of bread. These children approached him and tagged after him. He gave them bread to eat, and they ate. "Where are you from? Where are you from?" he asked. "We don't know," they answered, since they were young children. He went to walk away from them, but they asked him to take them with him. But they asked him to take them with him. "No, I will not take you with me," he said. Suddenly they noticed that he was blind, and this amazed them. Since he is blind, how is he able to get around? And their very amazement was in fact amazing, since they were only young children, but since they were clever children, this amazed them. But he blessed them, that they should be like him, that they should become as old as he is. He left them some bread to eat and went on. The children understood that God is protecting them, and had sent this blind beggar to give them food, nanach, nachman, meuman. But the bread eventually finished, and again they began to shout for food. It became night, and they went to sleep. In the morning they still had no food, so they shouted and cried. A deaf beggar then passed by. They began speaking with him, but he gestured with his hands that he does not hear. He gave them some bread to eat and went to go on. They wanted him to take them with, but he did not want to. And he too blessed them, that they should be like him. He left them with more bread and went on. Eventually this bread also finished. And they again shouted. This time a stuttering beggar passed by. They began speaking with him, and he stuttered in response. They did not know what he was saying. He understood what they were saying, but they did not know what he was saying. Since he stuttered, he gave them bread and went to go on. He too blessed them, that they should be like him. And he went as above. Then a beggar with a crooked neck passed by, and the same thing happened as above. Then a hunchbacked beggar passed by. Then a beggar without hands. Then a beggar without feet. Each one of them gave them bread and blessed them, that they should be like him, exactly as above. Eventually the bread finished, so they began walking towards civilization. They reached a certain path and walked along this path till they reached a certain village. The children went over to one of the houses, and the residents had compassion on them and gave them some bread. They continued and went over to another house, and these people too gave them bread. They continued on from door to door, realizing that this was a good idea for them. They agreed between them to always remain together. They made large sacks for themselves to go around from door to door. And they also attended all celebrations, such as circumcision and wedding feasts. Eventually they went on elsewhere. They went to cities, where they also went from door to door. They also went to fairs, where they sat with other beggars near the walls, holding a plate. Eventually these children became well known among all the beggars. They were all acquainted with them and knew that they were the children who had gotten lost in the forest. One time there was a large fair in a certain city. The beggars went there, and these children went there as well. The beggars then had an idea to make a match between these children, that they should marry each other. As soon as some of the beggars mentioned this, all of them thought this to be an excellent idea, so they sealed the match. But how would they make them a wedding? After discussion, they decided that on the king's upcoming public birthday party, they would all go there, and whatever they would collect there, such as meat and bread, would go towards the wedding, and that is what they did. All the beggars went to the king's birthday party and asked for bread and meat. They also collected the leftover meat and bread from the party. Then they went and dug a big ditch that would hold 100 people. They covered it with reeds earth and garbage. They all entered and made a wedding for these children, bringing them under the chuppah canopy. The rejoicing was very great. The bridegroom and the bride were also very happy. But then they began to recall the kindnesses that God had done for them in the forest, and they wept and yearned greatly. But then they began to recall the kindnesses that God had done for them in the forest, and they wept and yearned greatly. And they wept and yearned greatly. If only the first beggar who gave us bread in the forest was here. The blind and immediately as they were yearning so greatly for the blind beggar, he called out and said, "Here I am, I have come to your wedding. And I give you as a wedding gift that you should become as old as I am. And I give you as a wedding gift that you should become old as I am. Initially, I had only blessed you with this, but now I am giving it to you as an outright gift, that you should live long lives as I have. And you really think that I am blind? I am not blind at all. It is only that the entire time of the world's existence is not even like the blink of an eye for me. Is not even like the blink of an eye for me, since he does not focus his sight on the world at all. That is why he appears to be blind, because the entire time of the world's existence is not even like the blink of an eye for him. Therefore, focusing or even seeing this world is not possible for him at all. I am very old, but I am truly young. In fact, I have not begun to live at all, yet I am very old. And not only do, and not only do I say this, for I have the approbation of the great eagle. Let me tell you this story. Once, people boarded many ships and went out to sea. A storm wind came along and smashed the ships. But the people were spared. They reached a tower and climbed up to the top, where they found all the food, drink, ink, clothing, and everything else they needed. There was a bounty of good things there, and all worldly pleasures. At some point they said to one another that each one should tell an old story, whatever one's earliest memory. In other words, what he remembers from when his memory first began functioning. There were old and young people there. They gave the oldest one among them the honor of being the first one to tell. He said, "What can I tell you? I even remember when they cut the apple from the branch." No one knew what he was talking about, but there were some sages there who said, "This is certainly a very old story." Then the next one who was honored to speak, the second one who was younger than the first, said, "That's an old story. I also remember that. But I also remember when the candle was still burning." Those present there said, "This story is even older than the first one." They were amazed that the second one, who was younger than the first, remembered this story that was older than the first story. Then the third one was honored to speak. This third one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember when the fruit began to fall. I even remember when the fruit began to form." They said this story is even older. Nanach, nachman. Nanach, nachman, meuman. Then the fourth one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember when they took the seed to plant the tree." And the fifth one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember the sages who conceived of and invented the seed." The sixth one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember the taste of the fruit before it entered the fruits." The seventh one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember the fragrance of the fruits before it entered the fruit." The eighth one, who was even younger, said, "I even remember the appearance of the fruit before it was impressed upon the fruit." And I, said the blind beggar, telling this whole story, was then only a young child, but I was also there. I said to them, "I remember all these stories, but I also remember nothing." To this they said, "This is an extremely old story, more than all the rest." And they were very amazed that a young child should remember more than all the rest. Just then the great eagle knocked on the tower and said, Stop being such paupers. Return to your treasures. Return to your treasures and use your treasures. He said that everyone should leave the tower in order of their age. Whoever is older should leave first. He led everyone out of the tower, taking me, the young child, out first. For in fact I was older. I was actually older than them all. Thus whoever was younger, he took out first, and the eldest one, he took out the last. For whoever was younger was actually older. The oldest among them, the oldest among them was really the youngest of them all. The eagle then said, I will explain to you the stories that each of you told. The one who told that he remembers when the apple was cut from the branch meant that he remembers when his umbilical cord was cut right after birth. The second one who said that he remembers when the candle was still burning meant that he remembers when he was a fetus, or when a candle burnt over his head. The one who said that he remembers when the fruit began to take form means that he remembers when his body began to take form after conception. The one who said that he remembers when the seed was taken to plant or the fruit means that he remembers when the father's seed was emitted during intercourse. The one who said that he remembers the sages who invested the seed means that he remembers even when the seed was still in the mind. For the seed originates in the mind. The one who said that he remembers the taste means the soul, fragrance means the spirit, and the appearance means the essence of the soul. And the young child who said that he remembers nothing is above them all, for he remembers even what preceded the soul, nefesh, spirit, essence of the soul, which is an aspect of the ayin, nothingness. Then he said, return now to your ships, which are your broken bodies. They will be rebuilt. Return to them now. Then he blessed them. But to me, said the blind beggar, who had been only a young child, when this had happened, the great eagle said, as for you, come with me, for you are like me. You are extremely old, yet you are extremely young. You are extremely old, yet you are extremely young. You have not yet begun to live at all. Yet you are extremely old. I too am the same. For I am old, yet I am still young. Thus I have the approbation of the great eagle. And now I give you my long life as a wedding gift. With that awesome joy, and elation broke out. Awesome joy and elation broke out. Awesome joy and elation broke out. On the second day of the 7-day celebration, the children recalled the second beggar, the deaf one who had kept them alive by giving them bread. They wept and yearned. If only the deaf beggar who kept us alive was here. In the midst of their yearning for him, he suddenly appeared and said, here I am. He fell on their shoulders and kissed them. And now he said, I'm giving you as a gift that you should be as I am, that you should live good lives as I have. Initially I had only blessed you with this, but now I am giving it to you as an outright wedding gift. And do you really think that I'm deaf? I'm not deaf at all. It is just nothing in the entire world is of any value to me that I should listen to people talking about how they lack it, for all voices are caused by lack. Each and every individual crying out over what he is lacking. Even all the rejoicing in the world is all on account of lack. One rejoices over the fact that that one had been lacking, has been filled. But as for me, nothing in the world is of any value that tales of any lack of it should enter my ears. For I live a very good life, and that lacks nothing. And I have approbation from the country of wealth, that I live a good life. And this beggar's good life consisted of eating bread and drinking water. There is a country told that has great wealth, possessing great treasures. Once they gathered together, and each one began to brag about his good life, about how he lives the good life. About how he lives the good life. Each one told about the lifestyle of his good life. I told them the good life, that I live is beyond the good life that you live. Proof is, if you are living a good life, let's see if you are able to save a certain country. For there is a country with a garden, And in that garden are fruit that have all types of tastes in the world. All types of fragrances are also there, as are all types of appearances, all colors, and all flowers in the world. Everything was there in this garden. Now this garden had a gardener, and the residents of this country lived a good life from that garden. But the gardener went lost, and everything that was there in that garden withered and died, since no one was taking care of it yet. They were still able to support themselves from the weeds of the garden. But then a cruel king attacked this country. He wasn't able to harm them directly, so he went and ruined the good life that this country had from the garden. Omaaiiinnn. He did not directly ruin the garden, but left the groups of servants in this country, ordering them to do as he instructed. By so doing, they ruined the sense of taste, such that anyone who tasted anything would taste a putrid carcass. They also ruined the sense of smell. All fragrances would henceforth stink like galbanum. All fragrances would henceforth stink like galbanum. And they ruin the sense of sight. They darken people's vision as if by clouds and fog. This was all accomplished by their doing as the cruel king had instructed them. This was all accomplished. This was all accomplished. This was all accomplished as doing. Nanach, nachman, meuman, nanach, nachman, meuman. This is all accomplished by their doing. This is all accomplished by their doing as the cruel king had instructed them. So now if you live the good life, show me if you are able to help them. But I warn you, if you do not help them, the ruination of that country might harm you as well. So these wealthy people went to that country, and I accompanied them. Even along the way, each one was living his good life, for the treasures were with them. But as we approached that country, things began to spoil for them. They realized that their sense of taste and all their senses had spoiled. I told them, if now, when you have not yet even entered, your sense of taste has already spoiled, what will happen when you enter? What will happen when you enter? And how will you even be able to help them? But I gave them some of my bread and water, and they tasted all the tastes and fragrances and appearances in my bread and water, thus healing their senses that had been spoiled. Now the residents of the country with the garden began to think about what could be done to heal the sense of taste, etc., that had gone bad in their country. They came to the conclusion that their lost gardener, in whose merit they had lived a good life, is probably from the same root as the people of a country of wealth, who also live a good life. So they decided to send messengers to this country of wealth, for they would surely help them. And that is what they did. They sent out messengers to this country of wealth. And as the messengers were on their way, they encountered them, the very people of that country of wealth, who were on their way, who were on their way to them. The people asked the messengers, "Where are you going?" "We are going to the country of wealth," they answered, "to seek their help. We ourselves are from the country of wealth, and we are coming to you," they answered. But I said to them, "You anyway need me, since you cannot go there to help them. So you remain here, and I will go with the messengers and help them." I went with them. I entered the country, into a certain city, and saw how people were walking along, telling wisecracks. Others would gather around, until there was a whole crowd exchanging wisecracks. They were all smiling and laughing. I paid closer attention and heard that they were telling vulgar jokes. One said something vulgar, another said a more subtle vulgarity. Another was laughing, and another was enjoying it. Then I continued on to a different city. I saw two people quarreling over some business transaction. They went to court, And the court ruled that this one was absolved, and the other one liable. After they left the court, they began arguing again, and agreed that they were not satisfied, and agreed that they were not satisfied with that court and wanted a different court. So they chose a different court and went through litigation in the second court, and went through litigation in the second court. After that, one of these litigations began. One of these litigants began, after that, one of these litigants began quarreling with someone else, and these two chose yet a different court. They quarreled in that court as well, and chose several other courts, until the entire city was filled with courts. I watched this and realized that this was because there was no truth in this place. A judge would distort the law and show favor to someone who would later on show him favor. They're full of bribery and empty of truth. They're full of bribery and empty of truth. They're full of bribery and empty of truth. Full of bribery and empty of truth, and empty of truth. Then I saw that there's so much sexual immorality going on there, that its commonplace had made it their norm. I said to them, this is why your senses of taste, smell, and sight have gone bad. That cruel king had left behind those three groups of servants to ruin the country. They went around speaking vulgarities among themselves, thus introducing vulgarities into the country. On account of the vulgarity, the sense of taste was ruined, so that everything tasted like a putrid carcass. They introduced bribery into the country. Which caused your vision to darken, and the appearance of things was ruined, since bribery blinds the eyes of sages, and they introduced sexual immorality into the country, and this ruined the sense of smell. Therefore you must see that the country is cleansed, as clean of these three transgressions, and search for those people, and banish them. When these three transgressions are eradicated, not only will your senses of taste, sight, and smell be healed, but the lost gardener will also be able to be found. They did as advised. They began to uproot those three transgressions from the country. They sought after all those people, and when they would catch someone, they would ask him where he was from. And eventually they caught the men of that cruel king, and banished them. The country was then cleaned of these transgressions. Then a commotion broke out. Can it be that this lunatic who has been going around saying that he is the gardener, and everybody has assumed him to be a lunatic and thrown stones at him to chase him away? Can it really be that he is indeed the true gardener? So they went and brought him before them, that is, before those entrusted to clean the country, among whom was the deaf beggar. And I said, he is certainly the true gardener. Thus this country was healed by this beggar. Hence concluded the deaf beggar, I have the approbation of the country of wealth, that I live a good life, for I healed that country, and now I am giving you my good life as a gift. With that great rejoicing, and intense elation broke out. And each of the beggars came to attend the wedding, giving as a wedding present what each had originally only given as a blessing. First one gave long life as a gift, and the second gave good life as a gift. Nanach, nachman, meuman. Nachman.